how were you able to build and manage your capital when you started Cowrywise?
Okay, yeah. So I think for Cowrywise, it was the business, the capital intensity of the company is not as high as what you have if, say, you're building a manufacturing enterprise, for example, right? It has a very low capital intensity in terms of actual money to start it. I think the most important thing needed at that point was intellectual capital. And that's primarily because we are operating within the knowledge economy. So what we needed was the intellectual capital to do that, right? It wasn't like we needed so much money. All we needed was ability to develop the product, the software, ability to market it. So the amount of capital needed wasn't so much, more of human capital. Right. So, and that's where the founding team comes into play, right? Ed is a technical person. I'm a finance person. So it just makes sense that we have a finance and a tech person to establish a fintech company, right? So we really did not need to spend so much money to build things out. We built most of the things in-house. But of course, if you are to like, if you are to monetize, if you are to value if you are to establish the monetary value of that contribution, it can be much, right? So the lesson there for me is that if you're building out within the knowledge economy like this, it is very essential that the team, the founding team, has the necessary skill set and the competence to build those things out. Because if you really need to outsource that, right, to a third party, you'll spend a lot of money and you might not even be able to get what you want to build. All right. It's difficult to get like off-the-shelf software to solve a problem that is unique. So the solution needs to be tailored to that problem. It's not a generic software that you can go to India and pick it off the shelf and come here and deploy it. No, it's from what say banking, you can just get the software, Finacle, deploy it and then you start banking. But here, the opportunity you have is you have a plain canvas, right? An empty canvas where you are the artist and then you have to build it based on your imagination, based on your competence, based on your knowledge. So it's a unique opportunity, right? And that requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill set, a lot of competence. And so those are the capital requirements for businesses like this. And once you're able to build the MVP, once we built out the MVP, then the next thing is how do we monetize? How do we ensure that we have a solid commercial structure in place such that we don't keep burning money? So there is a clear path to making money, right? And that's how we started largely. Before we now went out, to raise capital from different investors, but initially it was largely human capital that was needed to get it up and running. It's different from if you want to establish, say, a gas plant, for example, or when to establish a manufacturing outfit. Of course, we need to buy the equipment, we need to buy land, we need to build structures.
Yeah, those are more capital intensive.
Yeah, so capital intensive, exactly. So the capital in there was just a laptop, small office, and then the knowledge required to build out the product. And this applies to Cowrywise, might not apply to every other business, of course. If you're doing fishery, if you're doing poultry, you can't do poultry on your laptop. You need to build out the pen. If you're doing manufacturing, you can't do it on your laptop. You need to build out the factory floor and stuff like that. So one just needs to understand the space, the business, and what is needed, right? So for us, we did not need a lot of initial capital to kick off. What we needed at that point was the commitment of the individuals found in it, the competence of the individuals found in it, and our time, the time needed to be committed to the project to ensure that we build out the first MVP. And it's actually very tricky though, because you might actually spend that competence and time, and you may not have what you can regard as an MVP, right? So it is very essential that one understands the problem you're trying to solve, right? It's extremely important. So you don't build a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. So if you have a clear understanding of that problem, then you can deploy your human competence, you can deploy your human resource, you can deploy your skill set to develop a solution to that problem. And if the solution is actually true, if the solution is actually working, you'll begin to see traction in terms of how people utilize the product. And that's actually more important than the initial capital, right? So you may not, in the initial, at the initial stage, you may not need to start raising money, right? It depends. Sometimes you might need, it depends on the project, but you may not necessarily need to start raising money. What you need at that point will be, one, your understanding of the problem you're trying to solve. Second, do you have the skill set to develop the solution to that problem? And three, do you have the needed team to, because you can't do everything, right? You need complementary skill sets from people found in the team, from people found in the company to be able to solve that problem. I think those are like the soft capital you need to get it going.
Thank you so much for that.